My name is Hannah, and I'm 38 years old, right now. I am sitting in my family's living room, feeling completely invisible. My sister Emily just took my car without asking. Again. I watched her drive away, knowing she was not covered by my insurance anymore. She does not know that. She does not know that. I removed her name last week. When she gets pulled over, and she will, I hope she understands why. My parents keep telling me I am selfish, that I owe them, that I owe Emily, but I am done being their invisible bank. I'm done being the good daughter who gets nothing in return. Before I tell you the whole story, I want to ask, where are you tuning in from? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because what happens next will change everything. My name is Hannah. I am 39 years old, and for most of my life, I have been what people politely call the dependable one. Quiet, predictable, always showing up when needed. Always saying yes even when it hurt. My sister Emily is 2 years younger than me. She is the loud one, the one who turns heads, the one who is always praised for her energy, her beauty, and her so-called spirit. Our parents never said it directly, but they made it obvious. Emily was the star, and I was the support crew. Growing up, I learned very early how to blend into the background. While Emily danced in talent shows and brought home shiny trophies from her cheerleading competitions, I stayed in my room and read. I drew pictures. I taught myself how to budget and save. I was fascinated by numbers, by the quiet logic of money. My dream was to one day start my own financial planning service for women, especially those who, like me, were used to being overlooked, but my family never understood that. At dinner, when I tried to talk about my small business plans or the online certifications I had earned, my parents smiled politely and changed the subject. Emily just got promoted again. My mother would say, "Do you see how well Emily's photos are doing on Instagram? She is becoming such an influencer." I did not mind at first. Not really. I thought that maybe if I just worked harder, they would see me, not just as the person who helped with the dishes or the one who paid the phone bill when my father's card bounced, but as someone with dreams of her own. I worked part-time jobs all through college. I graduated with no debt. I opened a modest financial services firm by the time I was 30. It started small, just tax prep and budgeting help for single moms in our neighborhood, but it grew fast. Quietly, I started to do well. Really well, but I never told my family because I knew they would not care. Or worse, they would pretend to be happy for me, but only until they found a way to benefit from it. So I played my role. I nodded and smiled when Emily bragged about brand deals. I picked up my father from his doctor's appointments when Emily was too busy. I paid for our mother's new glasses without asking for reimbursement. It was easier to just handle things. They never even asked how I managed it. My house is small but beautiful. A quiet 2-bedroom cottage outside the city, paid in full. I drive a reliable car, a used but well-maintained SUV. I never post about my life on social media. And that seems to have given my family the impression that I must not be doing very well. "Why do you not move into a better area?" Emily asked me once at Thanksgiving, looking around my kitchen like it was a rental property she was inspecting. "You are still living like a college student." That stung, because she had no idea that I had chosen this life on purpose. Because I valued peace and safety and control. Still, I smiled. "Because it works for me," I said, pouring her a glass of wine I knew she would not finish. I should have said more. I should have defended myself. But after years of being dismissed, you start to believe that silence is safer than trying to be understood. My parents were no better. My father called Emily his little hurricane. My mother said she was born to shine. And me? She is steady, they said. She is reliable. That sounds like a compliment until you realize it is code for, she will never be great. But she will always clean up after those who are. And clean up I did. When Emily's credit card got declined at the pharmacy, who did she call? Me. When our mother needed someone to sort through the insurance forms after her surgery, who sat up all night on the phone with the hospital? Me. When our father forgot to pay the electricity bill, who sent the money without a word? Me. And yet no one ever thought to ask how I was doing. If I was happy. if I needed anything. If I had someone in my life to lean on, I suppose they assumed I had nothing going on. That I was just waiting to be needed again. They never saw the late nights I spent reviewing client reports. They never saw the thank you notes I received from women I helped get out of debt. They never knew that I was quietly building a life of independence, one decision at a time, and maybe that was my fault, too. Maybe I let them believe I was small because it felt safer than risking their jealousy, because I had seen what they did. With Emily's ex-boyfriend, when he got promoted and bought a new car, they latched onto him like bees to honey, until he broke up with her. Then suddenly he was rude and not family material. I knew what would happen if they found out what I had built, so I stayed quiet until one day Emily crossed a line. She could not uncross it with a phone call. "Hey, I need to borrow your car," she said casually. "Just for the weekend. I have plans," I told her. "I need it to meet a client." "Oh, come on, Hannah. You work from home. You barely go anywhere. Just let me use it." I said no. Firmly. She hung up. The next morning. My car was gone. No. Note. No message. Just gone. At first, I thought it had been stolen. I called the police. I filed a report. I called my insurance company. I was shaken and angry, and then Emily posted a photo on Instagram smiling behind the wheel, driving to the lake house with her boyfriend. My car. No permission. No apology. Just entitlement. And that was the moment I realized something. They did not just underestimate me. They thought they owned me. They thought I was theirs to use, to borrow, to blame, to lean on. Forever that night, I sat in my kitchen and stared at the empty driveway. And I made a decision. I opened my laptop. I pulled up the insurance account. And I took her name off it. No warning. No call. Just action. Because I was done being the good daughter. It was time to be something else. Something stronger. And in that moment, I knew they had no idea who they were messing with. I used to think my memories were broken. Like maybe I remembered things too sharply, too emotionally. That I made certain moments seem bigger in my mind than they really were. But over time, I realized something important. The moments I remembered were not exaggerated. They were just never important to anyone else. That is what it means to grow up being the quiet one. You become so used to being overlooked that when something hurts you and no one reacts, you start to believe it must not matter. You tell yourself, maybe I am too sensitive. But deep down, a part of you remembers everything, and I remembered every birthday when Emily got the big, loud gifts and I got the useful ones, like when I turned 16. Emily had turned 14 just a few weeks before me, and our parents threw her a huge backyard party with balloons, cake, music, and over 30 guests. She got a new phone, a bracelet with her name on it, and even a cake shaped like a shopping bag from her favorite store. When my birthday came 2 weeks later, I got a dinner at home. No party, no guests, no cake. Just meatloaf and mashed potatoes. I remember my mother saying, "You are not a party kind of girl anyway, you like quiet things." And maybe I did. But that night, I went to bed and cried into my pillow because no one had even asked what I wanted. They just decided. Then there was my high school graduation. I had worked hard, really hard. I was the first person in our family to get into college on a scholarship. I graduated in the top 5% of my class. I gave a speech as one of the school's quiet leaders. Emily missed it. She had a modeling thing, as she called it. A photo shoot for some new boutique that had just opened in town. My parents went, but they left early to pick her up from the shoot. I came out of the auditorium to find an empty bench where they had been sitting. No flowers. No hugs, just a text from my mom that said, "Sorry, sweetheart, Emily needed us." So proud of you, though. They never even saw me walk across the stage. Later that night, Emily posted a picture of her posing in a new dress. My parents commented with heart emojis and praise. No one posted a photo of me in my cap and gown. No one asked what it felt like to finally prove that I could do something big. It was like I was invisible. Then there was the family dinner, that one. Still stings. I had just gotten my first major client for my business. A small real estate agency had asked me to help revamp their entire financial strategy. It was a huge step. The kind of contract that meant I could quit my side job and focus on my company full-time. We were all sitting at the dinner table, me, Emily, our parents, and our cousin Jake, who was visiting from out of state. I mentioned the deal, carefully, not wanting to seem like I was bragging. I signed a new client this week, I said. A full-year contract. It is a big milestone for me. Emily rolled her eyes. So what, you help people with their budgets? That is cute. I opened my mouth to explain, but my father jumped in. Emily is thinking of starting her own clothing line, he said proudly. You should help her with the money stuff, Hannah. That would be a great way to support her. It was like no one had even heard me. Jake looked at me and raised his eyebrows, sensing something. But no one else noticed the way my smile faded. I pushed my plate away and excused myself early. I sat in the car in the driveway for 20 minutes before I drove home. That was the night I decided never to bring up my work again at family dinners. It was easier to just let them believe I was doing fine than to fight for recognition that would never come. There was another memory, too smaller, but sharp. Emily had borrowed my sweater, a soft gray one I had saved up to buy. She wore it out to a party and came home with a red wine stain on the sleeve. When I asked about it, she laughed. It was not that expensive, she said. You can just get another one. She never replaced it. And when I brought it up to our mother, hoping someone would at least acknowledge that it mattered to me, she said, You are always so particular, Hannah. Let it go. It is just a sweater. But it was not just the sweater. It was that no one ever thought that my things, or my feelings, or my time, had value. And that belief followed me into adulthood. When I bought my house, no one visited. When I got my business license in the mail, I celebrated alone. When I won a local award for women in finance, I sent my parents a picture. They responded with a thumbs up. EMOJ. So I stopped sharing, I stopped hoping. Smiled when they called and let them talk about Emily's latest trip or her new brand partnership. I stayed quiet when they asked me to help with paperwork or taxes or utility bills. I just did it because that is what I was taught to be. Small, reliable, forgettable, until Emily took my car, until I saw that photo of her laughing with her boyfriend. Like she had just taken a pair of shoes from my closet, not a vehicle registered in my name. It was like every ignored birthday, every missing graduation hug, every eye roll and insult rolled into one silent explosion. And for once, I did not cry. I did not call anyone to explain how hurt I was. I did not try to make peace, because in that moment, the weight of every memory settled into my chest like a stone, and I saw clearly what I had spent years trying not to see. My family had never truly seen me. And worse, they never wanted to. They had built a version of me in their minds, someone who would always say yes, who would always clean up their messes, someone whose success did not count because it was not flashy or loud. But that person no longer existed, and they were about to find that out the hard way, because I was done being small, and the next time they looked for the quiet one to save them, I would be gone. There is something strangely powerful about being underestimated. It hurts, yes, especially when it comes from your own family. But over time, I learned to use it like armor. While they talked over me, ignored me, laughed at my quiet life, I was building something they could not even imagine. It started when I was 20-4. At the time, I was working 2 jobs, one at a bank, the other doing freelance bookkeeping for small businesses on weekends. It was exhausting. I barely had time to eat properly. But every single paycheck, no matter how small, I split 3 ways: a third for bills, a third into savings, and a third I invested, not in flashy stocks or get-rich-quick schemes. I was careful, intentional. I read books on long-term investing. I followed financial advisors online. I opened a Roth IRA before most of my friends even knew what that was. No one in my family noticed. When Emily moved into her trendy downtown apartment and posted photos of her rooftop view, my parents gushed. Look how successful she is. My mother beamed. They did not know that I had quietly purchased a duplex in a quiet suburb for half the price. I lived in one unit and rented the other. The rent paid my mortgage every month like clockwork. I never posted a photo of it. I never mentioned it at dinner. because I knew what would happen if I did. They would mock it. They would say it was boring or small or not real success. And then eventually they would find a way to take from it. So I kept it to myself. Over time, the bookkeeping turned into consulting. I started helping women in my neighborhood mothers. Going through divorce, young women starting their first jobs. Widows trying to make sense of retirement accounts their husbands had handled alone. It felt meaningful. Real. Word spread slowly but steadily. Within a few years, I had more clients than I could handle on my own. I hired someone part-time, Julia, a brilliant young woman just out of college who reminded me of myself. We rented a tiny office space above a bakery. The rent was cheap, and the smell of fresh bread every morning was an added bonus. I decorated. It's simply a bookshelf, a desk, and 2 armchairs for clients. No flashy sign. No website. Just word of mouth. And yet we grew. By 32. I had doubled my income. By 34. I bought a second property. A small townhouse I fixed up and rented to a retired school teacher who could not believe I charged less than market value. I just want good tenants who feel safe. I told her, and I meant it, while Emily showed off her designer bags. I built equity, while she talked about her brand partnerships. I reviewed retirement plans and helped single moms build emergency funds. And still my family did not ask. They assumed I was getting by. That I lived modestly because I had no choice. I remember one Christmas. Emily looked at the scarf I gave her handmade from a local artisan and said, "This is cute. Did you make it yourself?" "No," I said gently. "I bought it." She shrugged. "Well, it is the thought that counts." Then she opened our parents' gift to her, a tablet she had requested, and screamed in excitement. They turned to me and said, "Sorry, sweetheart, we were not sure what you needed this year." I did not respond, because I already had everything. I needed. Not just money, not just stability, but something more important, control. I had structured my business as an LLC with strong legal protections. I kept detailed records of every transaction, every loan, every favor, even the ones I gave to my own family. I had folders labeled with dates and scanned receipts. When I paid for our mother's dental work, I kept the invoice and the bank transaction. When I helped my father settle a credit card debt, I had the agreement signed. They thought I was just being helpful, but I was documenting everything. Not to use it against them, but to protect myself. Because a small voice inside me had started to whisper, "They do not value you. They do not respect what you have built, and one day, they will try to take it." So I prepared. I met with a lawyer and created a will. I bought insurance policies and placed everything in a trust. I added layers of security around my properties and my accounts. Not because I was rich, but because I had built something with my own hands. And I knew it was worth protecting. I even changed my car insurance policy, not just taking Emily off it after she took my vehicle without asking, but removing every family member. I updated my passwords, froze my credit temporarily, reviewed every shared account and closed the ones that left me vulnerable. Because I had seen enough to know that blood does not always mean loyalty. And while I loved my family, I no longer trusted them. That realization came quietly. Not like a crash, but like a tide rising around me, slowly, steadily, until I looked around and realized I was alone in the water. But I was not drowning. I was swimming. Stronger than ever. It is strange, living a double life. To the outside world and to my family, I was just Hannah, the dependable sister, the plain one, the background character. But in reality, I was the owner of a growing financial consulting firm, a landlord with zero debt and a near-perfect credit score, a woman who had built a 6-figure portfolio without ever asking for help. And no one knew, not Emily. Not my parents, not even my friends, because I had learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is move in silence. Let them underestimate you. Let them laugh. Let them think you are harmless. Until the moment you finally say, enough, and take back what is yours. I did not build this life to prove anything to them. I built it because I knew I deserve safety. Freedom. And respect. The kind they would never willingly give me. So I gave it to myself. And now, with Emily's betrayal still fresh in my mind, I looked at everything I had built, not with fear, but with clarity. I had not been small. I had been invisible. By choice, and that choice had protected me. But now?
Now,
I was ready to be seen. On my terms. Not as the helper, not as the fallback, but as the woman who had always been. 10 steps ahead. They thought they knew me. They were wrong, and they were about to find out just how wrong they had been. The invitation came in the form of a group message. It was from my mother, sent to me, Emily, and a few cousins we had not seen in years. Dad's retirement party Saturday the 16th at 6 p.m. Dress nice. Dinner at Green Hollow Country Club. Family. Only, that was all it said. No, please. No, hope you can make it. Just an expectation that I would show up. And, of course, I was expected to bring my car, my wallet, and my silence. I stared at the message for a long time. I knew I would have to go, not because I wanted to, not because I had anything to prove, but because this was the kind of event my absence would be used against me if I did not go. Emily would whisper, "She is always so cold." My father would say, "Hannah thinks she is better than us now." My mother would sigh, "She never shows up when it really matters." So I replied simply, "I will be there." And I began to prepare, not just emotionally but logistically. I knew how these gatherings went. They were not just dinners. They were performances. Emily would be the star of the show. She would arrive in some eye-catching outfit, greet everyone loudly, and monopolize the conversation with stories about collaborations and brand activations. That sounded impressive but meant very little. My parents would beam, feeding off her spotlight, and me, I would sit quietly, smile politely, and be forgotten by dessert. That had always been the pattern. But this time, something felt different. This time I had no intention of shrinking. I picked out my outfit carefully. Not flashy, not loud, but powerful. Deep navy blue pantsuit, tailored perfectly. Modest gold jewelry, clean hair. Confident posture. I did not want to impress them. I wanted to remind myself of who I had become, and more importantly, of what I would no longer tolerate. In the days leading up to the dinner, I stayed quiet in the group chat. Emily, as expected, filled it with questions about the menu, the lighting, whether there would be a professional photographer. Should we hire someone to get pics? She asked. This could be great content for my anniversary reel. No one responded. I could almost hear her annoyance through the silence. 2 nights before the event, she called me. "Hey, do you think you could drive me there?" She asked, like nothing had happened. My boyfriend has another shoot that day, and Uber is being weird with prices. I paused. "You took my car without asking, Emily." A beat of silence. That was weeks ago. "You are not still upset, are you? I needed it for 1 weekend. You barely even drive." And nothing bad happened. Yes, something did happen, I said calmly. "You committed a crime." "Oh, come on, do not be dramatic." "You are always so boundaried," I offered. "Responsible? Not the kind of person who gets arrested for driving without being insured." That shut her up. "You did not get arrested this time," I continued, "but you could have. And now you are asking me for a ride, like you are entitled to my time, my car and my forgiveness. But Emily, I owe you nothing." She exhaled sharply. "Wow, you really are bitter, huh?" "No," I said. "I am finally clear." And I hung up. She did not message again. Saturday arrived with cold air and gray skies. I arrived at the country club 15 minutes early. The valet opened my door with a nod, and I handed him the keys. Feeling a strange calm settle over me. Inside, the dining room was already buzzing. The table was long, white linen covered, with gold place cards and too many forks. Emily had already arrived. She was dressed in a bright red jumpsuit and high heels too tall for comfort. She looked like someone about to walk a runway, not someone celebrating a father's career. When she saw me, her smile dropped for half a second, then came back with more force. "Hannah," she said loudly, as if we were close. "You look serious." "Hello, Emily," I said, and kissed her on the cheek. Our parents were seated at the head of the table. My father was smiling, holding a glass of wine. My mother was adjusting the napkins, telling the waiter how to rearrange the place settings. No one stood to greet me. No one said, "Thank you for coming." I took my seat silently and waited. As the evening progressed, the pattern unfolded just as I expected.
Emily.
Gave a loud toast, full of inside jokes that only she found funny. She cried fake tears and posted photos of her wine glass. Next to a candle. My father beamed. My mother clapped. I sat and watched until the waiter came to me with the bill. He handed it to me discreetly, but Emily saw and laughed. "Oh, you are giving it to her," she said. "That makes sense. She always handles the money stuff." The table chuckled. My hand did not move. The waiter looked confused. "I believe this was to be covered by the host," I said softly. He hesitated, then looked at my father. My father looked at my mother. My mother looked at Emily. And Emily? She just smiled and said, "Come on, Hannah. It is not that much. You make good money, right?" The moment hung in the air. That was it. That was the moment they revealed everything. Not just that they assumed I would pay, but that they believed I existed to be used. To be generous without thanks. To be silent when insulted. To be convenient. I took a deep breath, reached into my purse, and pulled out a white envelope. I handed it to the waiter. He opened it, confused. Inside was a prepaid voucher for a single meal, covering only my portion. I turned to Emily. "I no longer pay for people who do not respect me." She blinked, confused, then laughed. "Are you serious?" "Yes," I said. "I am." I stood, picked up my coat, and looked at my parents. "I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening." "I really do. But this is the last time I show up to be insulted." They stared. No one moved. No one stopped me. And that was when I knew I was finally free, not because I left early, but because I left on my own terms, because I knew who I was now, and the person I had become would never again sit quietly at a table where she was only valued for what she could provide. I had hoped the retirement dinner would be the peak of it, that maybe after walking out the way I did, they would reflect. That maybe someone, my mother or even Emily, would call and say, "We are sorry. That was not fair. We see what we did." But of course, that is not what happened. Instead, 2 days later, I got a phone call from my father. "Hannah," he said, his voice stiff. "We need to talk about something. Your mother is very upset." "About what?" I asked, already bracing myself. He sighed. "Emily's name is missing from your insurance policy, the car insurance." I closed my eyes. "She is not listed," I said. "Because she has no business being listed." He cleared his throat. "Well, she got pulled over yesterday. A broken taillight or something. But when the officer ran the plates and asked for proof of insurance, there was a problem. He said she was not covered. He almost towed the car, Hannah. She was humiliated." "Good," I said plainly. He paused. "Excuse me?" I said good, I repeated. "She took my car without permission. She drove it without asking. She could have gotten into an accident and ruined everything I have worked for. I removed her name because I no longer trust her." "Hannah," he said, his voice suddenly sharp, "that is your sister." "Yes," I said calmly, "and she treated me like a rental service. So no, I do not feel bad." "She cried when she got home," he said. "She stole from me." I replied, and there it was, silence, thick, awkward, full of disbelief, because, for the first time, I had not backed down. I hung up before he could say anything else. The next betrayal came 3 days later. It was a Wednesday evening. I had just finished with a client, an older woman, finalizing her will, and I sat at my desk sorting receipts when my phone buzzed. Notification from my banking app. I clicked it without thinking, expecting a deposit, but it was a withdrawal. Large one, from my old joint account with my parents. The one I had used years ago to help with a family emergency and had forgotten still existed. $5,000. Gone. Transferred out that morning. I felt the room spin. Immediately, I logged into the account. The history showed the withdrawal was made by authorized user. A user I had not thought about in years. My mother. I called her instantly. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi, sweetheart," she said lightly, like nothing had happened. "You took money from my account," I said. "Oh," she said quickly. "Yes, I meant to text you. We are refinancing the roof, and your father's card is maxed again. Emily said you would not mind." I went cold. Emily said I would not mind. I repeated slowly. She said you were doing well. That you had everything set up. That it was easier this way. You stole $5,000 from me, I said, my voice rising. Without asking, without warning. Do not be dramatic, Hannah, she snapped. This is what families do. We help each other. No, I said. This is not help. This is theft, she scoffed. After everything we have done for you, raising you, supporting you, you raised me to serve you, I said, my voice shaking. Not to live my own life. And now you are using that as permission to violate me again. Stop it, she said. You are acting like a stranger. I feel like one, I said, and I hung up. That night, I sat in silence. No TV, no music. Just my thoughts and the hum of betrayal ringing in my ears. They had gone into my finances. They had discussed it. Behind my back. They had used my money without even thinking to tell me. And worse, they believed they were entitled to it. Emily had gotten caught. She had been pulled over, embarrassed. And instead of reflecting, she went back to our parents, spun a new story, and together, they punished me for drawing a line, because that is how people like them work. When you set a boundary, they see it as an attack. When you say no, they here, try harder. And when you protect yourself, they feel offended. I did not sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook and pen, and started writing down everything they had taken. Not just the money, not just the car, but the years of unpaid labor. The holidays I spent organizing, cooking, cleaning. The paperwork I had handled without recognition, the quiet sacrifices I made so Emily could shine, the way they had rewritten the story of who I was, just to keep their favorite child in the spotlight. I wrote it all down line by line, and I cried, but they were not the soft tears of someone asking to be loved. They were the hot, angry tears of someone who had finally seen the truth. My family was not confused, that they were not forgetful. They were not simply bad with money, or not great with words. They were deliberate. They used guilt the way some people use tools. They used silence to erase my value. They used family as a leash. Now the leash was off. The next morning I called my lawyer. I explained what had happened. The unauthorized withdrawal, the abuse of access, the emotional damage. He listened quietly, then said, "Let us make this right." We scheduled a meeting for the following week. That same day, I went to the bank in person. I closed the joint account, froze any connected services, removed every possible link to my family from my finances. It took 4 hours, but when I walked out, I felt something I had not felt in years. Safe. I turned my phone off for the rest of the day. I did not want to hear the excuses. I did not want to read the messages. I was done explaining my boundaries to people who had no interest in respecting them. That night, I poured a glass of tea, sat in my favorite chair, and stared out the window at my quiet neighborhood. And I promised myself something. They will not get one more dollar. Not one more ride. Not one more favor. Not one more piece of me, because they had taken enough. And now they would learn what it meant to lose access to the woman they had never bothered to understand. The days after, I cut off their access to my accounts and took Emily's name off the insurance. My phone did not stop ringing. At first, I ignored it, but when the calls kept coming, my calm was tested. I picked up one evening, expecting maybe my mother to apologize or my father to explain. Instead, I got Emily. Her voice was sharp, angry. "You do not get to do this to me, Hannah," she said. "You owe us." I took a deep breath. "What do I owe you, Emily?" I asked slowly. She laughed, but it was bitter. "We raised you. We fed you. We paid for your school." I let her words hang in the air. "Yes, you raised me. But you never raised me like I was important. You raised me like I was a resource. You live like a pauper," she snapped. "You have no kids, no mortgage. You are just wasting your money. We need it more." Her voice was cold now. "The family needed it. That is how families work." I felt a wave of nausea. They were telling me I was wrong for protecting myself. For saying no, for expecting respect. I heard my mother's voice next. Over the phone. "Hannah, you are being selfish," she said. After everything we have done, you refuse to share. It is not like you own everything. I blinked. The audacity. You forget, I said, that I worked for everything I have. There was a pause. Then my mother said, you are always so sensitive. You think you are better than us. I am not better, I said. I am just finally being honest about what I deserve. My father called next. He was quieter but just as firm. Hannah, you do not understand family. You owe us. Family does not owe, I said. Family respects. I think you are forgetting who helped you, he said. I did not want to hear it again. So I said, help is not permission to take what is not yours. My siblings called too. My cousins texted. Aunts and uncles sent messages, all variations of the same theme. You owe us. You are breaking up the family. You will regret this. I stopped answering. I stopped reading because I realized something terrible. They did not see me as a person. They saw me as a bank. Backup plan. An invisible safety net. I was supposed to give, and give again without question, without limits, without a voice. And when I stopped, they saw it as betrayal. They told me I was selfish. Ungrateful. Cold. But I knew the truth. I knew that setting boundaries was not selfish. It was necessary. I remembered the nights I stayed up, worrying about whether they would pay their bills. The days I missed opportunities because I was helping them. The way my own dreams were put on hold to keep the family afloat. And now, when I finally put myself first, they punished me because that is how toxic families work. They confuse love with control, kindness with obligation. And respect with ownership. But I would not be part of that anymore. I began to write back, not angry. Replies, not excuses, but firm, clear messages. Family is not a debt, I wrote. It is a choice. If you want me in your lives, you must respect me. If you cannot do that, then you do not deserve my time or my money. The call slowed, the text lessened, but the damage had been done. I realized something else too. The family. I thought I had one that cared and supported each other. Was a myth. In its place was a network of people who only valued me when it suited them, who saw me as a resource, who believed they had the right to take from me without asking. And that realization was painful, but freeing, because I no longer needed their approval. Their love, their demands. I was enough, I was worthy, and I was in control. The next time someone called me demanding money or favors, I was ready. I said no. Not with anger. Not with guilt, but with calm certainty, because I had learned the hardest lesson of all. No one owes you respect. You have to demand it. You have to stand for yourself. You have to say, I'm not yours to use, and if they walk away because of that, then they were never really yours to begin with. The moment I snapped was not dramatic. There was no shouting or slamming doors.
It was quiet, still, almost invisible, but inside something broke. For years I carried a weight, a quiet,
persistent ache that no one saw. A weight made of disappointment, loneliness, and the sting of being unseen. I had tried to be patient. I had tried to explain. I had tried to forgive, but nothing changed. They kept taking. They kept demanding. They kept treating me as if I were not a person with feelings. One evening, after another text from Emily demanding I give her money, I sat alone in my small living room. The soft hum of the city outside was the only sound. I felt exhausted. My heart was heavy, I realized. I had reached the end of my patience. Something inside me shifted. I remembered every time I swallowed my anger. Every time. I hid my tears every time I sacrificed my needs for theirs, and I understood. I was done. I was done feeling guilty for protecting myself. I was done explaining my boundaries. I was done being the family's invisible servant. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to them, but to myself. I wrote about the pain, the betrayal, the strength I had found, and the courage it took to say no. I knew the snap was not a sudden explosion. It was a slow burn, a building fire that finally lit the darkness. I thought about the moments I had let them hurt me without fight, and I realized that fight was inside me all along. I just had to let it out. The next morning, I woke up early. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman transformed, not because of what she wore, not because of a new hairstyle, but because of the fire. In her eyes, I felt different. Stronger. Ready to face whatever came next. I began setting clearer boundaries. I stopped answering calls from relatives who only called when they wanted something. I declined invitations that felt like obligations. I said no to favors that drained my energy. Each no was a small victory. Each refusal was a step toward freedom. At work, I became more focused, more assertive. I spoke up in meetings. I took on new challenges. I stopped apologizing for being ambitious. The snap inside me gave me power. It turned my hurt into action. My silence into voice. I also started to surround myself with people who lifted me up. Friends who saw me, colleagues who respected me, mentors who believed in me. I realized that family is not always defined by blood. Sometimes family is those who choose to stand by you, who cheer your success, who respect your boundaries. The snap was the moment I stopped waiting for my family to change and started changing myself. I stopped hoping they would see me. And began showing up for myself. It was scary because it meant walking away from the past, from the roles I had played. From the dreams I once had for a different family, but it was necessary because I could no longer live for their approval, their love, their acceptance. The snap was a gift. It gave me clarity. Strength. And most of all, freedom. From that day on, I was no longer the good daughter. I was Hannah. Whole. Complete. Enough. And nothing would take that from me again. The moment I snapped, I knew the next step had to be clear and firm. No more hesitation. No more silence. I had to act, not out of anger, but out of protection, for myself and for my future. I started by calling my lawyer first thing the next morning. Double quotes. Hello?
Hannah, he said, his voice steady and calm.
I have been expecting your call. I am ready, I said.
It is time.
I told him everything. About Emily's unauthorized use of my car. About the stolen money from the joint account. About the constant pressure from my family. He listened carefully. Then he outlined a plan. First, he helped me freeze all my financial accounts that could be accessed by family members. We set up alerts for any suspicious activity. He advised me to separate all
shared accounts,
remove joint access, and secure my credit reports with freezes. I followed every step. The peace I felt knowing no one could touch my money without my permission was immediate. Next, we prepared documents to prove ownership of my properties. I gathered all titles, deeds, insurance papers, and receipts, everything meticulously organized. These were my proof that I owned what I
claimed. The lawyer filed paperwork to place the properties and other assets in a trust. This trust would protect them
from any future attempts by family members to claim ownership or access. I also filed a police report, not because I wanted to escalate things unnecessarily, but because it was important to document Emily's illegal use of my car without insurance. I needed a record in case this happened again or if she caused damage or injury. The police officer was professional and understanding. He said, "You are doing the right thing by protecting yourself." After that, I took a bold step. I called my insurance company. I explained the situation in full detail. I requested that Emily's name be removed permanently from the policy. I added additional security measures on the account. No changes could be made without my direct approval. I also set up automatic alerts for any claims or inquiries. The company was very helpful. They understood the seriousness and cooperated fully, feeling more in control. I also reviewed every other contract. I was connected to utilities, cell phone plans, shared subscriptions. I removed any shared payment methods. I closed accounts that could be used against me. In addition, I made changes to my personal phone and email accounts. I updated passwords and added two-factor authentication. I blocked numbers that sent manipulative or angry messages. For the first time in years, I felt safe in my own digital space. The most important action, though, was in setting emotional boundaries. I stopped answering calls that were meant to guilt or pressure me. I stopped replying to texts filled with blame or demands. Instead, I sent one clear message to my family group chat. I am no longer available for financial support or unpaid labor. If you want to maintain a relationship with me, it must be based on respect and honesty. I will not engage with guilt, manipulation, or disrespect. This is my final decision. After sending it, I turned off my phone for several hours. I felt calm. Stronger. Free. I realized that decisive action was not about revenge. It was about self-preservation. About reclaiming my power, about building a future where I was no longer a victim, but a victor. I continued to build my business. I focused on clients who valued my work and respected my boundaries. I grew my rental properties, ensuring each one was managed carefully. I hired a property manager to reduce my stress. Most importantly, I started building a life on my own terms. I bought books on personal growth. I joined support groups for people who experienced family betrayal. I found strength in stories of others who had taken control of their lives. Slowly, the fear that had haunted me began to fade. I no longer worried about what my family thought. I stopped expecting apologies. I stopped hoping for change. Instead, I invested my energy in myself. And every day, I became stronger because decisive action was not just about protecting what I owned. It was about protecting who I was, a woman worthy of respect, a woman in control of her life, a woman who had finally said enough. And that was the most powerful action of all. The consequences of my actions came faster than I expected. Almost immediately after I cut off the family's access to my money and assets, I began to feel the backlash. My phone lit up with angry texts, calls from unknown numbers, emails that I did not want to open, but I stayed calm because I knew this was inevitable. When someone has been used for years and then says no, there is a shock, and that shock turns into anger. The first consequence was financial chaos for them, without access to my money. Their plans started to unravel. My father called me in a panic one morning. "Hannah, the credit cards are being declined," he said, voice strained. "They will not approve any more loans without your signature." I said nothing because this was the natural result of their entitlement. My mother texted me repeatedly, begging for help with bills. "Please, Hannah, we will pay you back." I replied only once, "You will not receive any more money without a formal agreement." My inbox flooded with desperate messages from Emily. She demanded rides, money, and favors. "Why are you doing this to me?" she asked. "Because you took my car without asking," I reminded her. I was desperate. She said, "So was I said. But I protected myself. Their reaction showed me just how dependent they had become on me. For years, I had been the safety net. The quiet giver, the invisible bank, and now that net was gone, I began to notice other changes too. Family gatherings became cold. Invitations stopped coming. My absence was noticed, but only as an inconvenience. At work, my clients asked if I was okay. I told them I was setting boundaries. They admired my courage. I could never do that. One client said. I smiled because it was hard but necessary. The anger from my family grew more personal. One evening, my mother called. Her voice was harsh. "You will regret this." "I do not regret protecting myself," I said. "You are breaking up the family." She said. I repeated, "Family is built on respect." She hung up. Later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Emily. Her voice was cold. "You think you are better than us now?" "No," I said calmly. "I think I am finally free." "Freedom does not mean loneliness," she warned. "I have friends who love me," I replied. "You will see," she said. "You will regret this." I did not reply, because I knew their threats were empty. Their desperation was real, but it was not my problem anymore. Instead, I focused on myself. I spent more time with my chosen family friends who supported me, clients who valued me. I joined a book club, met new people, and even started yoga classes. Life began to feel lighter. Even the financial consequences worked in my favor. Without having to support others, I was able to save more, invest more. Build my business with focus. I began to see the fruits of my labor. Clearly, the family's demands no longer distracted me. Their manipulation lost power. The phone calls slowed. The texts stopped. I felt peace, but I also felt something else. Grief. Because it was painful to lose the family I had hoped for, the one I thought loved me, but I knew I was not alone. Many people experience this. Family betrayal, the loss of connection when boundaries are set. It is one of the hardest things to face, but I had learned it was better than continuing to be hurt. I had learned that protecting yourself is an act of courage, that standing firm in your worth is strength, and that sometimes the consequences of choosing yourself are the first steps to true freedom. After the storm of anger and frustration, I found something unexpected. Support. It came quietly, in a way I had not anticipated. My closest friend, Lisa, called me one afternoon. She had heard about everything that was happening. "How are you? Holding up?" she asked gently. I told her the truth. I am exhausted, angry, but also relieved. Lisa listened. Not with judgment. Not with advice I did not ask for. But with kindness. And understanding. She said, "You are doing the right thing. You have every right to protect yourself." Those words meant more than I can say. Sometimes the hardest part is not standing up for yourself. It is finding someone who believes in you, someone who validates your pain and your strength. Lisa became that person for me. She checked in regularly. Sent encouraging messages, offered to meet for coffee, or just to listen. Her presence reminded me that I was not alone. Not everyone in my family had turned their back. Not everyone saw me as just a source of money or favors. There was love. There was friendship. There was respect. My lawyer was also an unexpected ally. During one of our meetings, he said, "Hannah, many clients come to me feeling trapped by family. You are brave for taking control." His words gave me confidence. I realized that what I was doing was not just about money or property. It was about reclaiming my life, about saying no to being used. About building a future based on respect. With their help, I started to rebuild, not just my finances, but my emotional health. I went to therapy. I joined support groups for people who had experienced family betrayal. Hearing other stories made me feel less alone. It gave me hope. Hope that healing was possible. Hope that I could create a new family, one chosen by love, not blood. I also began to reconnect with distant relatives who treated me kindly. They were not part of the drama. They offered friendship without expectations. Slowly, my world expanded. I felt stronger. More peaceful, and more certain of my worth. One day, Lisa said something I will never forget. "You are not just surviving, Hannah. You are thriving." That simple sentence made me smile, because it was true. I was no longer the quiet, overlooked daughter. I was a woman who had faced betrayal, pain, and manipulation, and had come out stronger. I learned that allies do not have to be family. They can be friends. Mentors. Therapists. Lawyers. Anyone who stands with you, listens, and believes in your right to be treated with respect. That support gave me the courage to keep moving forward. To keep setting boundaries. To keep saying no when I needed to, because I knew I was not alone. I had people who cared, who stood by me. Who reminded me that I deserved better, and that made all the difference. Months passed since the final confrontation with my family. It was as if a storm had passed through my life, leaving behind a calm, clear sky. I had rebuilt my world. Piece by piece, the chaos and pain were still there, but they no longer controlled me. I had created a new and quiet life, one that belonged to me. My mornings began with soft light pouring through the window. I brewed tea and sat on the balcony, watching the city wake. The noise was distant, but it no longer disturbed me. I had learned to appreciate silence, not as loneliness, but as peace. At work, my business was thriving. Without the constant stress of family drama, I focused fully on my goals. I hired a small team to help me manage projects. We worked well together, sharing respect and kindness. Clients noticed the difference in me too. They said I seemed calmer, more confident. I smiled because I felt that way. Outside of work, I nurtured my friendships. Lisa remained my closest ally. We often met for long walks or quiet dinners. Her presence was a steady comfort. I also joined a book club, where I found people who shared my love for stories and quiet conversations. For the first time in years, I felt truly connected, not through obligation. Not through guilt, but through choice. My home reflected this new life. It was cozy and simple, filled with plants, soft blankets, and light colors. I made space for myself, for my dreams, my hobbies, my rest. I spent evenings reading or listening to music, sometimes I cooked new recipes and invited friends over. There were no expectations. No drama. Just laughter and warmth. I also continued therapy. It helped me process the past without being overwhelmed. I learned to forgive myself for staying silent too long. To celebrate my strength. And to envision a future filled with hope. One of the hardest parts was accepting that my family might never change. They might never apologize. They might never truly see me, but I stopped waiting for that. Instead, I focused on what I could control. My life. My happiness. My peace. In this new and quiet life, I found freedom to be myself. To set boundaries without fear. To say yes to things that mattered. And no to things that did not. I remembered who I was before all the pain, and I chose to become that person again. Stronger. Wiser. More whole. I knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but I also knew I was ready, because I had built a life on respect for myself and from others. And that was a powerful foundation. Sometimes I thought about my old family. The dinners, the arguments, the betrayal, but those memories no longer held me hostage. They were chapters in my story, not the whole story. My new and quiet life was my true beginning, and I was grateful for every peaceful moment. Looking back, I realized that the real fortune I found was not money, property, or even the business I built. It was something much deeper. It was self-respect. For years, I believed that having their approval or love was the most important thing. That family meant sacrifice, pain, and silence. That being the good daughter meant giving everything, even when it hurt. But through the heartbreak, the betrayal, and the battles, I learned a different truth. Family is not defined by blood alone. Family is defined by respect. By kindness. By the ability to see each other as whole people, with feelings, dreams, and boundaries. I learned that the greatest gift I could give myself was the courage to stand up. To say no. To walk away from anyone who made me feel small. That courage changed everything. It gave me power. It gave me peace. It gave me freedom. I remember one quiet evening sitting by my window. The city lights twinkled below like stars. I held a cup of tea in my hands and thought about all I had been through. I realized I was no longer the same person. I was stronger. Wiser. More whole. I understood that losing my family's approval was not a loss. It was a gain of truth, a gain of freedom. And a gain of myself. I learned that the love I deserved was not conditional. It was not based on what I gave or how much I sacrificed. It was based on who I was, and that was enough. I hope my story helps you understand something important, that you do not have to stay in a family or situation that hurts you, that it is okay to protect yourself. To set boundaries. To choose peace over pain. Your worth is not measured by what others take from you, but by the respect you have for yourself and the strength it takes to say, I deserve better. If you are listening and feeling lost, know this: you are not alone, and you are worthy of love and respect. Always. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have something very special to share with you. Remember, your real fortune is the courage to be yourself, and that is a treasure no one can take away.